Aaron?
Joe Biden's lead has been growing, of course, in Pennsylvania throughout the day. If you're watching this, you've been seeing it bit by bit by bit creeping up. But the question is now, how many ballots are there left? How is the count progressing? When will we actually know the outcome for sure?
Yeah, and we are watching this vote by vote as the votes come in. We have reporters on both ends of the state of Pennsylvania where outstanding ballots remain. CNN's Kate Baldwin is in Philadelphia. CNN's Brian Todd is in Pittsburgh. Let's start with Kate in Philadelphia. Kate, what's the latest?
Hey there, Anderson. The counting continues. That is the latest that we're hearing here inside this convention center from Philadelphia election officials. The latest is there will be updated to the count 2,000 to 3,000 votes, but that also then leaves 20,000 mail-in votes to still be counted. That includes some of those mail-in ballots that have issues that require an extra review, a secondary look, like date issues or signature issues, or simply could be overly creased and need to be fed in to the machines manually. On top of that, there is then also 20,000, which is an estimate they're giving us, 20,000 provisional ballots that they will be looking at. So that's the update on the count. But that press conference that we had a couple hours ago also left quite a few questions still today, Anderson, which include how much longer will this counting take? And the city officials, the officials in charge of this election, they are not saying. The estimate that they're giving is it could take several days to have them all counted. And they say that there's not a problem. There's no problem to report in the process, but the process has definitely slowed. And what they attribute it to is that this whole process with with the ballots that have issues, with the provisional ballots, it takes time. But this process has definitely slowed down, Anderson.
And just to be clear, the ballots that you're talking about, the 20,000 mail-in ballots in Philadelphia, the 20,000 provisional ballots still to be counted, that is just for Philadelphia and the surrounding county, correct?
That's just for Philadelphia County, and that also in that count does not include the segregated ballots, the ballots that have been received here after 8 p.m. election day and can be received until today was the final day. They did not offer a clear count in the press conference that they had earlier, but we have been told previously that they're looking at something about an estimate of about 1,000 of those segregated ballots by the end of today. But again, that's only for Philadelphia and Philadelphia County, the largest county in Pennsylvania, dealing with all of these mail-in ballots still.
And just for our viewers who haven't been following this as closely, provisional ballots are essentially ballots of people who showed up on election day. There was some problem at the poll of finding their signature or something like that. They were allowed to vote, and those votes are set aside to be rectified if necessary.
Yeah, a perfect example of a provisional ballot this time around would be they requested a mail-in ballot. They didn't receive their mail-in ballot. It didn't come through the mail. So then on election day, they showed up to a polling place and said, I would like to vote. You're given a provisional ballot, which is, it's held until they check that that mail-in ballot, you didn't also mail back in and vote by that mail-in ballot you were supposed to receive in the mail. It's a provisional ballot. They're reviewed, and then they will be counted if there is no issue with it. But it's safe to assume that with those 20,000 mail-in ballot, those provisional ballots rather, that will be reviewed, not all of them are likely going to be counted.
Right. Kate Baldwin, appreciate it. Let's go to Brian Todd now, who is in Pittsburgh. Brian, explain how many outstanding votes there are being counted where you are.
Right, Anderson. About 35,000 plus outstanding votes are still to be counted, are being counted right now, and will be counted this afternoon and throughout the evening and possibly into tomorrow here in Allegheny County. You know where we are in Allegheny County near Pittsburgh in the western part of the state, and where Kate Baldwin is in Philadelphia, those counties around there. That's the ball game here in Philadelphia. This is where Joe Biden is going to try to drive up his margins and possibly put himself over the top here in Pennsylvania. Now, what we can tell you is we just spoke to the county executive of Allegheny County, Rich Fitzgerald. He said that they've gone through so far about 3,000. They've counted about 3,000 of the 35,000 plus ballots that they've got to go through. He did not give us results. He is promising to give us those maybe in about 2.5 hours. Those first results are going to start trickling in about then. But he says they're going to work through the night. They're committed to staying here. They're going to at least work until late tonight, possibly until early tomorrow morning. And, they really are committed to drive this through and get this done. We talk a lot about transparency and about what observers are going to get access to at these places here in eastern Pennsylvania and in other states. Well, what's really cool about this is that we're getting great access right here. This is the elections warehouse here in Pittsburgh. And this is where all the counting for these mail-in ballots from Allegheny County is being done. These are ballots that were mailed before Election Day, on Election Day. They got here, some of them after, and that's why they have to count them here. But look, I'm going to have my photojournalist Jay McMichael kind of zoom past me here. These election poll workers are getting briefed on the next round of ballots that they're going to be counting. They've just counted some damaged ballots, about a little over 2,000 of those. Then they're going to start to count about 3,000 or more ballots from military members and overseas voters. That's what they're about to do right now. And we're talking about transparency. In the foreground, these people are observers. These are bipartisan observers who've been looking over the shoulder of these counters all day long, and they're going to be doing that throughout the night. And you want to talk about transparency. The county executive, Rich Fitzgerald, told us they've got cameras everywhere. And Jay is going to zoom over to those screens there. You can see they've got cameras kind of over the shoulders of a lot of these stations, including where they're storing them, where they're counting them, where they're processing some other votes. Look at those screens right there. They've got cameras all over this room. So you talk about, access to the count, observers being allowed close to where they're counting. That's all happening here. And Rich Fitzgerald, the county executive, told us a short time ago they've had no complaints, they've had no problems with anomalies, anything like that. Right here is where we've observed, just inches from where I'm standing. They're taking a break right now, but these people were counting damaged ballots right here, and observers were like 5 feet behind them, just behind those fences right there. So a lot of access, a lot of transparency here. It seems to be working well. It's a slow slog. Kate was just talking to you about that in Philadelphia. It takes time. They've got to open up these ballots, check for anomalies, make sure that they're above board. They've got 35,000 plus to go through. They say they're going to go overnight, possibly into tomorrow. So we're going to start to get some results trickling in a couple of hours, hopefully. And then, we're going to hopefully bring those to you tonight, tomorrow morning, and we'll see what the final count here is in Allegheny County, which is a crucial county for Joe Biden. He spent a lot of time here, Anderson, in the latter stages of his campaign.
Yeah, it's good to see just how close those observers in Allegheny County in Pittsburgh are allowed to get to watch how closely they are, just about 5 feet, as you said. Brian Todd, appreciate it. Thanks very much. Now where the race stands and how it got that way, let's go to Phil Mattingly for us. So the margin just got a little bit tighter in Arizona, I believe. Is that right?
That's right. It's underscoring the fact that this is a live ball in several states right now. Joe Biden has a lead in several states, but Arizona is one of those places where, unlike Pennsylvania, unlike what we saw over the course of the morning in Georgia, the lead is actually narrowing. Right now, Joe Biden round up 50% to about 49%, 41,302 votes. So the big question is there enough vote outstanding for President Trump to catch up, given where this is?
And that lead has been shrinking a little bit drips and drabs as more votes are counted.
Yeah, it shrank substantially over the course of about a 24-hour period. Now it's starting to shrink a little bit less. However, President Trump, if you're trying to gauge where things stand right now, the vote that came in from Mojave County. I want to pull this out here and do head-to-head and where things stand. What we know about what came in from this vote is President Trump got 3,171 votes. Joe Biden got 694. From a percentage perspective, President Trump is a little over 80%, Joe Biden at 17.5%. Now, a couple things to put in here as you look at that top line. Obviously, President Trump making up about 2,477 votes here. But the bigger issue right now is Mojave County. It's the fifth largest county in the state, about 3% of the population. But this is not where the major outstanding vote is. That, from a percentage basis, is what President Trump wants to see. He wants to be somewhere above 53, 54% in terms of margins for everything that comes in from here on out. This is a Republican county. Look at the margin. You expect the margin to be bigger here when that vote comes in. The big outstanding question, and what everybody in both campaign has their eyes on right now, is Maricopa County. Largest county in the state, about 60% of the voting population. We know right now there's roughly 142,000 votes outstanding from Maricopa. And here's where it gets a little dicier for the Trump campaign. The last batch of votes that came in from Maricopa, President Trump had a lead out of that batch of votes. but it wasn't the type of lead that he needs. And what I'm trying to say here is basically President Trump needs to be hitting a specific ratio, a specific margin, every single time vote comes in, especially large batches of votes from counties like Maricopa, to have an opportunity to close this gap. Right now, he's falling short of that a little bit. What he had in Mojave is good. 80% would be great. If he could do 80% in Maricopa, he's not just in the ball game, he's on track. But he hasn't been based on the most recent drops in the largest county. That's what we're keeping an eye on. When those 142,000 votes come in from Maricopa, that's the ball game.
So in Maricopa, what is the percentage difference generally between them?
So this is the interesting thing. What we've been seeing in Pennsylvania and Georgia is the late vote was all being counted as mail-in, and mail-in vote was leaning so heavily Democratic that Joe Biden has been making up huge margins repeatedly over the course of the last 24 hours. Arizona has been a little bit different. Maricopa, the mix, the composition of the vote that's come in terms of when it was dropped off, whether it was mailed in. Maricopa, while Joe Biden is leading,